ex told me my dog was dead. He had no idea what I was about to find out. I came home from a therapy appointment and the apartment was dead silent. Birdie's leash was gone from the hook by the door and her bed was gone from the corner of my room and her water bowl was still on the kitchen floor with a ring of water drying around the edges. Birdie was my service dog. I trained her myself, and whenever I had a panic attack, she would press her whole body against my chest and lick my chin until my breathing slowed down and nobody else knew that command. She was the only reason I could walk out my front door every morning. My ex Theo's name was on the adoption papers, so after we split, he took her and went silent. I kept calling and begging. She's my lifeline, Theo. Without her, I have nothing. Then he finally picked up sounding annoyed. She got sick. It happened really fast. There was nothing anyone could do. I slid down the kitchen wall onto the floor. Where is she buried? He told me. Why does it matter? She's gone. Stop calling me. Then the line went dead. I stayed on that kitchen floor for hours, staring at where her bowl had been, and waiting for her to come around the corner with her tail going. She never did. I stopped leaving my apartment and I stopped eating, and every night I would reach down next to my bed expecting to feel her fur, and my hand would just hit cold floor. I kept her collar on my nightstand because I could still smell her on it, and some nights I would press it against my face and cry until I passed out. My panic attacks came back so bad I had one in a parking lot where a stranger called an ambulance. The paramedic crouched down and I could see his boots on the pavement and hear the radio crackling on his shoulder. Is there someone we can call for you? I just sat there because the honest answer was nobody. That night I stared at myself in the mirror and said out loud, this is not how it ends. I found a volunteer spot at an animal shelter across town, and the first day I walked in, this pit bull pressed her nose through the kennel gate and looked at me with these big sad eyes, and I sat down on the concrete and sobbed. I started going regularly and met Joan there, who was a retired vet tech and knew everything about service animals. The nightmares got quieter and I started cooking again, and one morning I realized I had slept the whole night through for the first time since losing Birdie. Then one afternoon I was cutting through a neighborhood I had never been to before, and I passed a row of apartments with a dog chained to the railing. She had no water and no shade, and she was so thin I could see every rib through her matted coat. Then she lifted her head and lunged toward me so hard the chain snapped tight, and she let out this cry that vibrated through my whole chest. I knew that sound. I had heard it 1,000 times when she heard my keys in the door. Behind her left ear was a scar from a surgery I paid for when she was a puppy. She was straining against the chain, trying to press her body into my chest the way I taught her, and she physically could not reach me. Birdie was alive and starving while I had been pressing her collar against my face every night. Birdie was choking herself against the chain trying to reach me, and I could see her ribs shifting under her skin with every breath. I reached for the chain, and the front door swung open, and a woman came out and looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. Get away from my dog. I stood up and looked her right in the face. This is my dog. She laughed. That's Princess, and she's mine. Theo gave her to me, so touch her again and I'm calling the cops. My whole body locked up when she said his name. This was Theo's girlfriend. She had my dog, and he told me Birdie was dead. She grabbed Birdie by the collar and dragged her back through the door, and I could hear Birdie's nails scraping the floor on the other side trying to get back to me. I got in my car and called animal control. I need to report a neglected animal. Do you have proof of ownership? She's microchipped in my name. We need the animal present to verify. File a report and we'll send someone out. They never came. I called my old vet and they told me, the chip is still registered to you, but we need her here in person to confirm. I had proof but no way to use it. I called Theo and told him Birdie is alive and I just found her chained up starving. His voice came back slow and smug like he was enjoying this. You're having an episode. This is exactly why I didn't fight to keep you together. I saw the scar behind her ear and I know it's her, so don't you dare lie to me. He laughed at me. He actually laughed. You always were obsessive. Get some help and move on. I did a long time ago. Then right before he hung up, I heard a dog bark in the background. I knew that bark the way you know your own name. He was standing right next to the dog he told me was dead while calling me crazy for saying she was alive. I drove past that apartment every day after that, and on the days Birdie was chained out, she would see my car and start scratching at the concrete trying to reach me. Joan came with me one afternoon and watched for a long time. Then her voice dropped. That dog is deteriorating fast, and if this keeps up, she will not survive the summer. I gripped the steering wheel. I have the vet records and the chip registration, and you've seen her yourself. Joan looked me dead in the eyes. Then we go get her ourselves. I show up the next morning with Joan and the vet records in a folder. Birdie is chained to the railing, panting in the sun, and the second she sees me, she starts crying and throwing herself against the chain so hard the metal bends. The girlfriend comes flying out the front door screaming, I swear to God, if you don't get off my property, I am calling the police. I kneel down on the concrete, and Birdie does exactly what I trained her to do. She presses her whole body into my chest and starts licking my chin over and over, and she is making these little sobbing sounds into my neck. I try to pull back to look at her face, and she pushes me right back down and presses harder, like she is terrified that if she lets go, I will disappear again. The girlfriend goes quiet. I look up at her with tears running down my face. If she's your dog, then what is she doing right now? What's the command for that? She opens her mouth and nothing comes out. How long have you had her? Her voice cracks. Theo gave her to me when we first started dating, and he told me the previous owner gave her up. Joan steps forward holding the folder. I'm a retired vet tech, and I've worked with service animals my entire career. What this dog just did is a trained psychiatric panic response that takes months to teach. Nobody taught your dog to do that. The girlfriend takes the folder, and her hands are shaking as she flips through it, and her voice almost disappears. He told me she was just some dog nobody wanted. I stand up, and Birdie presses against my leg so tight I can feel her heartbeat through my jeans. He told me she was dead, and I fell apart because I thought I lost her, and the whole time he gave her to you to make you like him. Her eyes are filling up. He told me you didn't want her. I unclipped the collar with Princess on it, and it hits the concrete. Her name is Birdie, and she is coming home with me. The vet scanned Birdie's chip, and my name was still on it. She sleeps at the foot of my bed again. Theo's girlfriend never called back.